Welcome to Nightmare Narratives, where every story is a journey into darkness. Prepare to be haunted by tales that will linger long after the lights go out. At 2 a.m., I'm driving back from a shoot in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking like deserted highway nowhere, where the only light comes from my headlights slicing through the pitch-black night. The air is thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant cry of a night creature. This is the kind of place where the shadows seem to watch you, and every twist and turn of the road feels like a descent into the unknown. It's the perfect setting for a horror story, and I'm starting to wonder why I ever thought it was a good idea to take this route alone at such an ungodly hour. As the minutes crawl by, a sense of dread begins to creep over me, making me question if I'm truly alone on this forsaken road. Think Nevada, but like 10 times creepier. The only light is coming from my headlights, and all I can see is this endless stretch of asphalt disappearing into the darkness. The road seems to stretch on forever with no signs of civilization in sight. It's just me, my car, and the vast, empty expanse of the desert. I'm trying to keep my energy up, blasting music, singing along off-key, the whole deal. But there's this weird vibe, like the kind of vibe that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The kind of vibe that makes you feel like you're not really alone, even though you know you are. Like something just feels off. And then in the distance, I see it. A figure, just standing there, right in the middle of the road. At first, I think my eyes are playing tricks on me. Maybe it's just a shadow or a trick of the light, but as I get closer, I realize it's definitely a person. Now I've seen enough horror movies to know this is where things get real. My heart starts racing, I grip the steering wheel a little tighter, and I slow the car down. Every instinct in my body is telling me to turn around and get out of there, but curiosity gets the better of me. As I get closer, the figure comes into focus a little more. It looks like a person, but something about it just seems off. There's an unnatural stillness to it, like it's not really human. Its clothes are tattered and dirty, and its hair is a wild mess. Their clothes are ragged, their hair is a mess, and they're just standing there, completely still. I'm freaking out a little, I'm not gonna lie. My mind is racing with all sorts of possibilities. Is this some kind of prank? Is this person in trouble, or is it something more sinister? Part of me wants to slam on the gas and get out of there, but the other part of me, the part that always gets me into these situations, wants to see what's up. I mean, what if this person needs help? What if they're stranded out here in the middle of nowhere? So I keep driving, slowly. The closer I get, the weirder this whole thing feels. The figure is still just standing there, not moving, not even looking at me. It's like they're waiting for something or someone. I'm about to roll down the window and shout, "See if they're okay, be a good Samaritan." But then the figure turns its head towards me, and that's when I see it. And I swear, my blood ran cold. Its eyes were completely black, like two empty sockets staring right through me. There was no emotion, no life in those eyes, just darkness. It was like looking into the void. Dude, I'm not exaggerating. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was straight out of a nightmare. I could feel my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I slammed my foot on the gas, my car roaring to life as I sped past the figure. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just kept my eyes on the road ahead, praying that I would get out of there in one piece. I just kept driving, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel its eyes on me, even as I sped away. It was like it was watching me, following me with its gaze. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pursued, even though I knew it was impossible. It was like it was watching me, following me with its gaze. The further I drove, the more I tried to rationalize what I had seen. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, or maybe I was just tired and my mind was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew that what I had seen was real, and it was something I would never forget. As I continued down the highway, I couldn't help but glance in my rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting to see that figure standing in the middle of the road behind me. But there was nothing, just the empty, dark road stretching out behind me. Eventually, the sky started to lighten, and the first hints of dawn began to break over the horizon. The eerie feeling started to fade, replaced by a sense of relief that I had made it through the night. But the memory of that figure, with its black, empty eyes, would stay with me forever. When I finally reached my destination, I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. I parked my car and just sat there for a moment, trying to process what had happened. It felt like something out of a horror movie, but it was all too real. Later, when I told my friends about the encounter, they were skeptical. Some of them thought I was making it up or that I had just imagined it. But I knew what I had seen, and it was something I would never forget. So the next time you find yourself driving down a deserted highway in the middle of the night, just remember, you never know what you might encounter, and sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't explain. All right, so this one time I was driving with my buddy Heath, and we were on our way to this music festival out in the boonies. It was one of those spur-of-the-moment decisions, you know? We had just finished our finals, and we were looking for a way to blow off some steam. The festival was supposed to be this epic 3-day event with bands playing nonstop, food trucks, and all sorts of cool stuff. We were pumped, to say the least. You know how it is, we're hyped, blasting tunes, and totally oblivious to the fact that we're about to drive straight into a horror movie. The excitement was palpable, and we were singing along to our favorite songs, not a care in the world. The road ahead seemed like a gateway to freedom and fun, but little did we know it was leading us somewhere far more sinister. We were supposed to take this main highway, but my phone died, and Heath, being the genius navigator he is, decided to take a shortcut. He was always the adventurous type, never one to stick to the beaten path. "Trust me," he said, "this will get us there faster." Famous last words, right? We turned off the main road and onto this narrow, winding path that seemed to stretch endlessly into the unknown. Spoiler alert, it was not a shortcut. We ended up on this creepy back road, like straight out of the Blair Witch Project. The trees were so thick and overgrown that they practically swallowed the road, creating an eerie tunnel of darkness. The further we drove, the more isolated we felt, like we were being swallowed by the forest itself. Trees were practically forming a tunnel over the road, and the sun was setting, casting these long, creepy shadows everywhere. The light was fading fast, and the shadows seemed to dance and twist in the corners of our eyes. It was like the forest was alive, watching us, waiting for the right moment to pounce. The vibe was off from the jump. It was like all the joy got sucked right out of the car the second we turned onto that road. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, and an unexplainable sense of dread settled over us. It was as if the forest itself was warning us to turn back, but we were too stubborn to listen. The music suddenly felt too loud, so we turned it down, and then it was just silent, like eerily silent. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl and your heart race. It was as if the forest had swallowed all sound, leaving us in a void of unsettling quiet. No birds chirping, no wind rustling the leaves, just this heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to amplify every little creak and groan of the car. Every sound the car made felt like a scream in the stillness, and it only added to our growing unease. It was like the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Heath tried to lighten the mood, cracking jokes, but even his laugh sounded forced. We both knew something wasn't right. His usual carefree demeanor was replaced with a nervous edge, and I could see the tension in his eyes. We were both trying to pretend everything was fine, but deep down we knew we were in trouble. And then I saw it. A flicker of movement in the trees up ahead. It was just a brief glimpse, but it was enough to send a chill down my spine. I squinted, trying to make out what it was, but the shadows made it impossible to see clearly. At first, I thought it was just a deer or something, but as we got closer, I realized it was a person, or at least, It looked like a person. The figure was standing perfectly still, partially hidden by the trees, and it seemed to be watching us. My heart started to race, and I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins. It was tall and slender, dressed in this long, flowing white gown, and it was just standing there, partially hidden by the trees, watching us. The gown seemed to glow in the fading light, giving the figure an otherworldly appearance. It was like something out of a ghost story, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched by something not entirely human. I know what you're thinking. David, it was probably just a hiker or something, but here's the thing. There was no way anyone could have hiked into that part of the woods. It was too dense, too overgrown. The underbrush was so thick that it would have been nearly impossible for anyone to make their way through it. And yet, there it was, standing there, watching us. Before I could even process what I was seeing, the figure vanished. 1 minute it was there, staring at us, and the next, it was gone. My heart was racing, and I could tell Heath was freaked out too. We exchanged nervous glances, both of us wondering if we had just imagined the whole thing. 1 minute it was there, staring at us, and the next, it was gone. My heart was racing, and I could tell Heath was freaked out too. He kept glancing nervously at the trees, like he expected the figure to reappear at any second. The tension in the car was palpable, and we both knew we needed to get out of there as fast as possible. He kept glancing nervously at the trees, like he expected the figure to reappear at any second. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat, and the oppressive silence only made it worse. We were both on edge, our senses heightened, and every little sound made us jump. We kept driving, desperate to get out of those woods, but the weirdness was far from over. The road seemed to stretch on forever, and the trees closed in around us, creating a claustrophobic tunnel of darkness. It felt like we were driving in circles, trapped in some kind of twisted nightmare. We started hearing these strange noises like whispers and moans coming from the trees. It was like the forest was alive, filled with unseen voices that seemed to be calling out to us. The whispers were faint at first, barely audible over the sound of the car, but they grew louder and more insistent with each passing moment. It was like the whole forest was alive with unseen eyes watching us, judging us. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, and it felt like the trees themselves were closing in on us, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The whispers seemed to come from all directions, surrounding us, and it was impossible to tell where they were coming from. I cranked up the music, trying to drown out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers seemed to seep through the speakers, wrapping around us like icy fingers. No matter how loud I turned up the volume, the whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent. It was like they were trying to tell us something, but we couldn't understand what they were saying. We were both seriously creeped out at this point. Every time a branch snapped or an owl hooted, we jumped out of our skin. The forest seemed to be alive with unseen creatures, and every sound felt like a threat. Our nerves were frayed, and the tension in the car was almost unbearable. The worst part was this feeling of being watched. Like those unseen eyes in the woods were following our every move. It was a constant, oppressive presence that weighed heavily on us, making it hard to breathe. We both felt it, this unshakable sense of dread that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. It was like we had stumbled into some ancient, sacred ground, and we were not welcome. The forest felt old, ancient, like it had been there for centuries, untouched by time. There was a sense of history, of something powerful and malevolent lurking just beneath the surface. It was a place where we didn't belong, and the forest seemed to know it. Just when we thought things couldn't get any weirder, we saw it, a light up ahead. It was a small, flickering light, barely visible through the trees, but it was enough to give us a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find some answers there. An actual, honest-to-goodness light shining through the trees. It felt like we had been driving through those woods for hours, but I knew it couldn't have been that long. Time seemed to warp and bend in that place, and it was impossible to tell how long we had been driving. The light was a beacon, a sign that we weren't completely lost. Time seemed to warp and bend in that place. As we got closer, the light grew brighter, and we could make out the outline of a building. It was a small wooden cabin, seemingly untouched by time, Smoke curled from its chimney and a warm, inviting glow emanated from its windows. It was like a scene from a fairy tale, and it felt like a lifeline in the darkness. It was a small, wooden cabin, seemingly untouched by time. Smoke curled from its chimney and a warm, inviting glow emanated from its windows. The sight of the cabin filled us with a sense of relief, like we had finally found a safe haven in the midst of the nightmare. It was a stark contrast to the dark, oppressive forest that surrounded us. We pulled up to the cabin, our headlights illuminating the clearing around it. The light from the cabin cast long shadows across the ground, and the air was filled with the scent of wood smoke. It was a welcome change from the oppressive silence of the forest, and we both felt a sense of relief wash over us. For the first time since we had turned onto that road, we felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find some answers here. The cabin seemed like a beacon of safety, a place where we could finally catch our breath and figure out what was going on, or at the very least a working phone and a way out of this nightmare. We were both desperate to get back to civilization, to leave the haunted forest behind us. The cabin was our last hope, and we clung to it like a lifeline. We got out of the car, our legs stiff from the long drive, and cautiously approached the cabin. The ground was soft and damp beneath our feet, and the air was filled with the sounds of the forest. It was a stark contrast to the oppressive silence we had experienced on the road, and it felt like a small comfort. Heath knocked on the door, the sound echoing through the silent woods. We waited, holding our breath as the seconds ticked by. The cabin seemed to hold its breath with us, the warm glow from the windows casting a comforting light on the clearing. We waited, holding our breath, as the seconds ticked by. The silence was almost unbearable, and every second felt like an eternity. We were both on edge, our nerves frayed, and the tension was palpable. Just when we were about to give up and turn back to the car, the door creaked open. The sound was loud in the stillness, and it sent a shiver down my spine. We both held our breath, waiting to see who or what would appear in the doorway. And that's when things took a turn for the truly bizarre. The figure that appeared in the doorway was unlike anything we had ever seen, and it was clear that our night was far from over. The nightmare was just beginning, and we were about to be plunged into a world of darkness and terror that we could never have imagined. All right, guys, buckle up for this one. Imagine this. It's almost midnight. You're cruising down some no-name highway, and your gaslight decides to throw a rave in your dashboard. The needle is dipping dangerously close to E, and you start to feel that familiar twinge of anxiety. You know the one. The kind that makes you sit up a little straighter and grip the steering wheel a little tighter. We've all been there, right? That moment when you realize you might be in a bit of trouble, but you try to convince yourself it's going to be fine. Maybe you even start talking to your car, coaxing it to hold on just a little longer. Except this time, there's no 24-hour Wawa in sight. Just miles of empty road and creepy swaying trees. The kind of trees that look like they could reach out and grab you if you get too close. The darkness seems to press in on you, making the road ahead look like a tunnel with no end. Just when you think things can't get any worse, bam, you spot it in the distance. An abandoned gas station bathed in the faint glow of a flickering neon sign. It's like a beacon of hope in the middle of nowhere, but there's something off about it. The sign flickers erratically, casting eerie shadows that dance across the cracked pavement. Jackpot, or so you think. Relief washes over you as you pull into the lot. But that relief is short-lived. The place looks like it hasn't been operational in years. Weeds poke through the concrete and the windows are covered in grime. You pull up to the pump, the silence around you thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. It's the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, and you can't help but feel like you're being watched. The pump is old and rusty, and you wonder if it even works. The air is heavy with the smell of stale gasoline and something else. Something you can't quite put your finger on. It's a musty, almost metallic scent that makes your skin crawl. You try to shake off the feeling, telling yourself it's just your imagination. It's like that feeling you get when you know someone's watching you, but every time you turn around, there's nothing there. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and you can't shake the sense of unease that's settled over you. You step out of the car, the door creaking shut behind you like an invitation to whatever's lurking in the shadows. The sound echoes in the stillness, making you jump. You take a deep breath and try to steady your nerves. The wind howls through the trees, sounding like a chorus of whispers just beyond the edge of the light. It's almost as if the trees are trying to tell you something, but you can't quite make out the words. The whispers seem to grow louder, more insistent. You can't help but feel like you've just stepped onto the set of a horror movie, and you're not sure you want to stick around to see how it ends. Every instinct is telling you to get back in the car and drive away, but you need gas, and there's no other option in sight. Now, here's where things get really freaky. You try the pump, but it's bone dry. No surprise there, right? You knew it was a long shot, but you had to try. The handle feels cold and lifeless in your hand, and you drop it with a sigh. You try the pump, but it's bone dry. No surprise there, right? You knew it was a long shot, but you had to try. The handle feels cold and lifeless in your hand, and you drop it with a sigh. But then, you hear it. A soft, almost inaudible hum coming from inside the gas station. It's a strange sound, like a low-frequency vibration that you can feel in your bones. It's unsettling, to say the least. It's like someone left the lights on and a fan buzzing, which is weird, right? Because this place looks like it hasn't seen a customer since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. The windows are dark and the door is slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. Because this place looks like it hasn't seen a customer since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. The windows are dark and the door is slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. You tell yourself it's probably just the wind messing with your head, but that little voice in the back of your mind is screaming at you to get back in the car and drive away. Fast. You tell yourself it's probably just the wind messing with your head, but that little voice in the back of your mind is screaming at you to get back in the car and drive away. Fast. Your heart is pounding in your chest, keeping time with the eerie hum that seems to be getting louder, closer. Your heart is pounding in your chest, keeping time with the eerie hum that seems to be getting louder, closer. You take a step closer to the boarded-up window, your curiosity outweighing your fear. You take a step closer to the boarded-up window, your curiosity outweighing your fear. Peering through a crack in the wood, you see nothing. Just darkness and dust motes dancing in the faint light. Peering through a crack in the wood, you see nothing. Just darkness and dust motes dancing in the faint light. But that humming sound, it's definitely getting louder. Just darkness and dust motes dancing in the faint light. But that humming sound, it's definitely getting louder. You decide to man up and see if you can find a phone or maybe some kind of help inside this creepy gas station. But that humming sound, it's definitely getting louder. You decide to man up and see if you can find a phone or maybe some kind of help inside this creepy gas station. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right? You decide to man up and see if you can find a phone or maybe some kind of help inside this creepy gas station. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right? Famous last words, my friends. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right? Famous last words, my friends. As you walk towards the entrance, you notice something strange on the ground. A faded photograph, half buried in the dirt. Famous last words, my friends. As you walk towards the entrance, you notice something strange on the ground. A faded photograph, half buried in the dirt. You bend down to pick it up, wiping away the grime to reveal a picture of a young couple standing proudly in front of a brand new car. As you walk towards the entrance, you notice something strange on the ground. A faded photograph, half buried in the dirt. You bend down to pick it up, wiping away the grime to reveal a picture of a young couple standing proudly in front of a brand new car. The photo is dated 1950. You bend down to pick it up, wiping away the grime to reveal a picture of a young couple standing proudly in front of a brand new car. The photo is dated 1950. You look closer at the couple. Their smiles wide and carefree. The photo is dated 1950. You look closer at the couple. Their smiles wide and carefree. And then you notice it. The car behind them. It's the same make and model as the one in the driveway. You look closer at the couple. Their smiles wide and carefree. And then you notice it. The car behind them. It's the same make and model as the one in the driveway. You flip the photo over, hoping for a name, a date, anything, and then you notice it. The car behind them. It's the same make and model as the one in the driveway. You flip the photo over, hoping for a name, a date, anything. Instead, you find a single chilling sentence scrawled on the back. Never leave. You flip the photo over, hoping for a name, a date, anything. Instead, you find a single chilling sentence scrawled on the back. Never leave. You glance back at the car in the driveway, its paint faded and tires flat. Instead, you find a single chilling sentence scrawled on the back. Never leave. You glance back at the car in the driveway, its paint faded and tires flat. The humming sound from inside the gas station seems to pulsate around you, growing louder with each passing second. You glance back at the car in the driveway, its paint faded and tires flat. The humming sound from inside the gas station seems to pulsate around you, growing louder with each passing second. You realize with a jolt that you're not alone. The humming sound from inside the gas station seems to pulsate around you, growing louder with each passing second. You realize with a jolt that you're not alone. Someone or something is watching you. You realize with a jolt that you're not alone. Someone or something is watching you. Okay, this is where even I would have to say, nope. Someone or something is watching you. Okay, this is where even I would have to say, nope. You turn around, your heart doing a drum solo in your chest, and that's when you see them. Okay, this is where even I would have to say, nope. You turn around, your heart doing a drum solo in your chest, and that's when you see them. Two figures silhouetted against the faint light coming from inside the gas station. You turn around, your heart doing a drum solo in your chest, and that's when you see them. Two figures silhouetted against the faint light coming from inside the gas station. They're tall and slender, and they seem to glide towards you, their movements fluid and unnatural. Two figures silhouetted against the faint light coming from inside the gas station. They're tall and slender, and they seem to glide towards you, their movements fluid and unnatural. You blink, thinking your eyes are playing tricks on you, but when you open them again, the figures are closer. They're tall and slender, and they seem to glide towards you, their movements fluid and unnatural. You blink, thinking your eyes are playing tricks on you, but when you open them again, the figures are closer. You can't make out any features, just their dark shapes against the light. And that humming sound? You blink, thinking your eyes are playing tricks on you, but when you open them again, the figures are closer. You can't make out any features, just their dark shapes against the light. And that humming sound? It's louder than ever, vibrating through the air like a physical presence. You can't make out any features, just their dark shapes against the light. And that humming sound? It's louder than ever, vibrating through the air like a physical presence. You back away slowly, never taking your eyes off the figures. It's louder than ever, vibrating through the air like a physical presence. You back away slowly, never taking your eyes off the figures. Your hand reaches for your phone, but your fingers are shaking so badly you can barely grip it. You back away slowly, never taking your eyes off the figures. Your hand reaches for your phone, but your fingers are shaking so badly you can barely grip it. You need to get out of there, and fast. Your hand reaches for your phone, but your fingers are shaking so badly you can barely grip it. You need to get out of there, and fast. You fumble with the phone, trying to unlock it, but your hands are slick with sweat. You need to get out of there, and fast. You fumble with the phone, trying to unlock it, but your hands are slick with sweat. The figures are getting closer, and you can feel the air around you vibrating with that eerie hum. You finally manage to unlock your phone and dial 911, but the call won't go through. The signal is dead. Panic sets in, and you realize you have no choice but to make a run for it. You turn and sprint back to your car, your heart pounding in your ears. You fumble with the keys, your hands shaking uncontrollably. Finally, you manage to get the door open and jump inside, slamming it shut behind you. You lock the doors and start the engine, praying it will start. The car roars to life, and you peel out of the lot, the tires screeching on the pavement. As you speed away, you glance in the rearview mirror and see the figure standing at the edge of the lot, watching you. The humming sound fades into the distance, but the feeling of unease lingers. You don't stop driving until you reach the next town, the lights of civilization a welcome sight. You pull into a well-lit gas station and take a deep breath, trying to calm your racing heart. You made it out, but the memory of that abandoned gas station will haunt you for a long time to come. So, the next time your gas light starts flashing and you find yourself pulling into a deserted gas station on a dark and lonely highway, remember this story. Picture the eerie silence, the flickering lights casting long shadows, and the cold wind whispering through the trees. Remember the couple, forever bound to that place, their love story echoing through the years, a tale of passion and tragedy. They met under the same dim lights, shared dreams, and faced their fears together. And maybe, just maybe, you'll choose to keep on driving, leaving behind the ghosts of the past and the haunting memories that linger in the air. Sometimes it's better to drive away and find your own path, far from the shadows of forgotten love.